Is this the Dr. Ray?
What are you asking me?
Are all people mentally ill?
I have no idea.
Boy, you hit the nail right on the head there.
Now, why would I say something so dumb?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I don't remember what I said.
You're always contagious, by the way.
Am I really that awful?
I don't care. I'm not concerned with that stuff.
And I guess that's true, but doggone.
As usual, you're doing all the talking.
Well, are you better than God?
No way.
I'm going to give you some bad news. You got a problem.
I just wanted to call and get some wise advice, hopefully.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
She wanted to call and get some wise advice. Did she know what show she was calling? Did you check that with her, Andrew, when she called? This is Dr. Ray, hopefully dispensing, as she said, hopefully dispensing some wise advice here on The Doctor Is In. My profession is clinical psychology. Came out of graduate school, ready to go, sit in the office 12 hours a day at the Mental Health Center in Columbiana County. 12 hours a day, back to back. I don't do that anymore. I still see folks, though. Here on the radio show, this is not a therapeutic environment. This is not a place for diagnosis. This is certainly not a place to second-guess, question, comment upon if you're seeing a therapist and what the therapist has said. It's a show to educate, give you some ideas, something to ponder, think about, maybe turn you in a direction that you know you should have gone in, but you just haven't yet. Or to turn you around from a direction that you realize is pretty self-defeating. You just want to hear another voice say that. If you have a question about kids, parents, families, spouses, jobs, emotions, in short, life, we can talk. Be delighted to talk with you. Eric Dumont is my call screamer today. And Andrew Kruchek is the producer man there in Ann Arbor as we cooperate with the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network to bring this program to you. The number, I don't think I even gave it out, 877-57-EQUAL. 877-573-7825. I would hope that number would be on your refrigerator, back of your toilet seat, your medicine cabinet mirror, any place that there could be an emergency erupting. You've got a little kid who throws a spontaneous temper eruption. We have the toll-free number, 1-800-KID-BRAT. That's I haven't used it too much, but it is there. So 877-573-7825. What do you think the number one? If you want to call it a phobia, again, phobia is a very malleable word. It can stretch from, I don't like to get on roller coasters. They just make me jittery and nervous. All the way to, I wouldn't go to a park that has one. Hearing people scream would make me scream. But if you want to call it a phobia, depending upon how much it interferes with somebody's life, depending upon the severity of the anxiety reaction, most common phobia is, survey says, public speaking. I've seen estimates that say up to about 75% of people. Now, again, you got to ask how this is being defined. From a jittery nervousness, but will do it if forced, all the way to no way, no how, no chance will I get in front of anybody. Now, why would this be? Public speaking is not dangerous. I mean, it's highly unlikely anybody's going to hurt you. Not going to throw anything at you. Probably not even going to boo you. The worst thing they would do is ignore you or fall asleep. And believe me, I've experienced that. Very few people actually are comfortable in a public speaking setting. It's a minority. That's why I get paid the big bucks. You know, in my early days when public speaking was at its heyday, I spoke probably 100 to 120 times a year. It's not that number now because technology's taken over a lot of it. And also public speaking has just become something a little less common. People are less group oriented. Why would it be? What is it about public speaking? Well, obviously, if there's no danger involved, it has to come from one's own head. Realistically, there's nothing to fear. But we create a fear. What is that fear that we create? It is being assessed. It is being judged. Do I look nervous? Will I stumble on my words? Will people think I'm boring? Will I be clear and articulate? In other words, it is the fear of being judged, the fear of being assessed, and worse, the fear of being thought negatively. That's what it is. Not much more than that. You're not in any real danger, unless you're a very, very, very high-profile public politician who might have to have some security, but short of that, the vast, vast majority of us in any given situation where we have to say a few words to any size audience from 5 to 500, we would avoid it. We would do what we can to get somebody else to substitute. And it does come down. It shows you, it comes down to, we get very concerned about what others think, if not of us, of our performance. Why? Why would we be so unsettled about that? What is it about another person's opinion that keeps us from doing certain things? That's a lot of what social anxiety is. Social anxiety, something across a lot of settings. What if I'm awkward? What if people scrutinize me, something about me? I don't know if I could tolerate that. And the question is why? What is it about other people's opinions about your competence? Ironically, most public speaking involves an awful lot of people that are only going to see you one time. You're not speaking before a group of longtime friends and family. These are just folks, the majority of whom you don't even know. And you're worried about what they're going to think. And that worry translates itself into kind of a sense of anxiety, a sense of your body gearing up for danger. Where is the danger? Is it dangerous that somebody might think about you in a way you don't want them to think about you? Somebody asked me once, when I used to do a lot of the commercial, secular, national shows, did you ever get nervous? I go, not really. How could you not? Some of those audiences, like Oprah, they had millions of viewers. I said, yeah, but I don't know any of them. About the only people I knew were those folks in the audience. That's pretty much it. And I think it came down to I really didn't care what they thought. I wanted to do a good job, but I couldn't control how they were going to assess me. And if you've been in the speaking business as long as I have, you know you're going to get negative feedback. I spoke to a group of educators one time, and I happened to talk about how some of my own children, before we adopted them, were very high risk for abortion. And I made some comments on that. Oh, the individual who set up the speaking engagement got feedback. How dare he talk about that to this group? What was his point? Did he not realize there were people out there who thought very differently? No. What a shock. How much did it bother me? I got to admit, it did rattle me a little bit until I regrouped and said, what do I care what they think? Public speaking is a classic anxiety producer, and it is a major illustration of getting caught up in what people think about you or your competence. It pretty much explains it. 877-573-7825. Got some nice calls up there. I would invite your calls. Your calls make the show. I am privileged and delighted to get a chance to talk with you, Dr. Ray.
Don't let everyone else get all the great advice. Call now to speak with Dr. Ray.
Today's programming on Ave Maria Radio is brought to you in part by a gift from our day sponsor, Ralph Martin.
I have a really wonderful announcement to make today. I've written a new book. It's called The Coming Judgment, Are We Ready? And it's just been published. It's just out. And I'd really like to encourage you to consider getting it. You can get it at renewalministries.net or on Amazon or any one of a number of other places.
Check out his new book, The Coming Judgment, Are We Ready? Now available at renewalministries.net.
Give your child a Catholic education rooted in truth, beauty, and goodness. At St. John Paul II's Classical Catholic School on the campus of Christ the Good Shepherd in Lincoln Park, students receive authentic Catholic teaching while studying the great books, sacred music, practical mathematics, and Latin. Learning to stand firm in the faith because your child's education should form both saints and scholars. Enroll now at jp2catholic.com.
Another year has come and gone, and whether you like it or not, Uncle Sam requires you to make an accounting.
Perhaps it's time to call Myler and Zipka. They work with you to legally minimize your tax bill and identify ways to reduce future taxes. Eliminate the nagging feeling that you're paying more taxes than you need to. Call Ken Zipka today at 734-930-5500. Myler and Zipka. Integrity, excellent value, and people dedicated to a long-term relationship. 734-930-5500.
This year, Guest House is celebrating its 70th anniversary. Opening their doors in May in 1956 in Lake Orion, Michigan, Guest House is the world's most successful treatment center designed exclusively for the ordained and consecrated, including those in formation. For 70 years, they've been a beacon of hope and healing for more than 8,000 guests seeking lasting recovery from addiction and other behavioral health conditions. Support their mission today at guesthouse.org. That's guesthouse.org.
Do you think there's a relationship between caring so much about what people think of you, especially if you're not doing anything wrong, and your sense of self-security? I mean, self-security is not pride. Actually, self-security can come from humility because you recognize you're God's child and what you have is his gift, and therefore other people's opinions don't have the same weight. They're not who you're trying to impress. Bonnie from, I think that's Alaska, AK, called yesterday. She was Arkansas. AK, so that would be AR then, would it not be? No, that's Arizona. What is Arkansas? AS? Bonnie will tell us. She called yesterday. She was on the line at the end of the program. We just had a few brief minutes. So Bonnie will recap what she said, and we can get into it in a bit more detail. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi there.
Now, what is the abbreviation?
Do you want me to recap, or are you recapping?
You recap, but what is the abbreviation for Arkansas? AS?
AR, I think.
Oh, AR?
I think
okay.
AK is Alaska.
AK is Alaska, and Arizona would be AZ. Okay, I think I got it. All right, yeah, you recap there, Bonnie.
Well, so I have a granddaughter that is saying that she is transgender. And my daughter, her mother was raised in the Catholic Church, but is away from the church. They've been pretty respectful of our beliefs, not really pushing it on us. but she has a sibling who is wanting to confront her and to say to the she's 16 years old, to say to her, I will not be calling you by the masculine pronoun or by your new masculine name that you've made up for yourself. What you're doing is not right, and you are not a boy, you are a girl. And this is a very sensitive child, very sweet, always the one to make everybody feel comfortable, look out for the underdog. And she's really not asking that anybody call her by that name. It's just what her mother and her sister and her dad call her.
Now, when you say sister,
So
you're talking about
nervous.
Bonnie, I want to clear something up. You're talking about mother's sister, not her sister. Right? Mother's sister is the one who wants to tell her these
sibling,
things.
yes, the sibling that wants to confront is my daughter's sister, not my granddaughter's sister.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
And you're going on some kind of family vacation or get together, if I recall, and they're going to take that opportunity to reiterate this.
Yes. Yes.
Are they determined?
I
Are they
struggle with it.
They're going to do this?
I'm sorry?
Well, since this is your daughter, are they determined that they're going to do this? You've spoken to them about it, and they said, no, we consider it our duty to do this.
I have not spoken to them about it. My daughter, who is the mother of this child, they confronted her about it and said, this is what we're going to do. And she said, no, please do not do that. And she was going to call them again this week and say, I'm just letting you know, in no way do I feel like that's your place, and please do not. And I did.
Well, how are you, Bonnie? How are you involved in it?
If there was any resistance to that, she should let me know, and I will call.
Bonnie, how are you involved in this?
Just in the fact that it's always been a struggle for me, and there's always been conflict in our family with it. There are some who are very far on the left and think we should totally embrace it. And then, of course, there's this other sibling that's totally on the right. And as I am, too, I did visit with a priest about it. My husband and I did. And he was saying, love her. She already knows how you feel. Her mother knows what your moral stance is on that. But you need to continue to love her. And every time I think about being more direct with her or talking to this girl about this, I feel like it's not going to go anywhere. And she already feels awkward around everyone because she feels like she's being judged.
Here's why people are driven to do this in many cases. When it becomes clear that somebody is pursuing some life choice that you believe is detrimental to them or is immoral from your deeply held belief system, we feel this drive to correct them. But if you already have, or as you said, if I recall from yesterday's call, that's been going on for a couple of years now, and they're all settled into the direction she is. So the reason that you would do something like this, not you, but your other daughter or son, the reason they would do this is somehow they feel morally obligated to straighten her out. And then it's as though they're getting something off their conscience. When in fact, if they were looking at this realistically, they would say, this is the direction they're going right now. We think it's harmful. We think there's going to be some definite complications. However, we have no ability to change this. Everybody knows who thinks what in this family. So if you talk to them, this other offspring of yours, tell them you realize if you do this, you're probably going to create a rift, a significant rift between you and your sibling. I would suspect that. I'd be kind of shocked if not. So tell them that, and then ask them, what's your motive for doing this? They already know how you see it. They've already decided they don't care if the whole world sees it differently. They're going to do what they want. Now, here's a couple questions I think that might be relevant. How far is your granddaughter taking this? In other words, is she getting hormones, male hormones? Is she considering a sex change? Okay, no hormones, no sex change operation.
No.
Okay, because the hormones, the research says that gender, quote unquote, affirming hormones actually raise the risk of mortality by a factor of 3. And you would expect that because those hormones are not meant to be put into a body that is sexually, genetically set up a certain way. So that's the one thing. So she's not doing that. That's good. That's one place where I'd say reveal that to her if in fact she was determined. The other one is at this point, they just simply have decided, and by the way, I don't think you caught this yesterday, but my monologue yesterday was this. When they surveyed Americans, and I don't know who this group was of Americans, but they surveyed them. In fact, the majority, I think it was like 59%, believed that transgendering was morally acceptable. So when you're in that situation, as your daughter is with her daughter, they can take comfort knowing that the majority of people agree with them. And that's kind of how we generally gauge whether we're doing the right thing or not. Is like, well, most people agree with me. So, and that was the point I was making yesterday. I said that if you're going to look at this from a Christian perspective, you're going to be in the minority. You're going to be in a small minority. So asking me here, Bonnie, I would say this. They already know where you stand. Keep your opinions to yourself. Treat her just like your granddaughter. You don't have to necessarily call her by her boy's name. You can just call her sweetheart, honey, however you want to do it. And I would do what I can, if you want to keep peace in your family, to convince your other offspring, be careful about this. They've already asked you not to do it. And if you go ahead and do it, what is your reason? What is your purpose? There you go, Bonnie.
I like the way, yeah.
My thoughts on that. Good luck to you, dear.
Let me ask you another question, Dr. Ray.
All right.
Do you think that what the 16-year-old is doing is a sin? Because, I know the church teaches that it is not a sin to be gay, or whatever we want to call it, but it is a sin to act upon it. So where do we? And she's not saying she's gay; she's saying she's transgender, which is different. And
the church would say that's a significant.
Where does she cross that line?
Yeah, the church would say that's a significant confusion about this. All right, and they would say that objectively, the church would teach that that's objectively disordered. Now, the degree to which the 16-year-old is morally culpable, which means blameworthy, is known only to God. Mm-hmm. And part of the confusing factor here is that she doesn't follow Catholic Church teaching. That's the other problem. She doesn't agree with it. She doesn't believe it. She hasn't been exposed to it. So to say, what you're doing is morally wrong, she'd look at you and say, well, I'm not Catholic. I don't buy the whole moral umbrella. So that would be a mitigating factor, I believe. It's like the 15-year-old who gets an abortion.
The abortion, looking at it.
Yeah, the abortion is objectively very wrong. But what are the conditions for this 15-year-old? Does she realize it? Is she forced into it? Are people pushing on her really heavily? How much does she have full knowledge and full consent of the gravity of what she's doing? Bonnie, thank you. Thank you. This is Dr. Ray. Give me a call, 877-573. One thing people never reference, I will call about that, Carol, but I've talked about it many times, but I will repeat it out of deference for your taking time to call. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Ray Guarendi here. Number 877-573-7825. 877-57-EQUAL. That is the number to call to get onto the program. Carol from New York called to comment, and she didn't stay. She said that one thing that people never reference regarding this whole transgender phenomenon is that their DNA is the same. DNA tells scientifically if you are a boy or a girl. Well, Carol, I'm going to disagree with you on that, because that seems to be the main thing that folks talk about when they're addressing the whole transgender matter, which is scientifically it is impossible to alter your sexuality as it is set by your genetics. Of course. But here's where the confusion comes in. We now live in a culture that progressively more and more says my preference rules over reality. One of the unalterable realities is my sexuality. It's XX or XY, and barring a few other aberrations, and I'll get to those in a second. That's it. But we live in a culture that says, no, I can, by virtue of my mind, my decision, my preference, I can negate that. I can decide that I'm in the wrong body. It's a dualism. It really is a dualism. It says that essentially I've got a brain, my mind, and then I've got this body. And my mind can dictate reality, no matter what the structure scientifically of my body is. Now, just as an aside, a man running for Texas Senate, a guy named Tallarico. Now, he said some things that he claims, of course, been pulled out of context. That's always what people say when they say something that is considered controversial. He said there are 6 genders. Now, again, there's always this confusion between sex and gender. Sex is the biology. Gender is the perception, if you will, of what my biology should be. And he says there's 6. Now, I know what he was alluding to. He was alluding to the fact that, yes, there can be genetic abnormalities in the cell. You can have an XXY, you can have an XYY, there's Klinefelter syndrome. Yes, but this does not change the overall sexuality of the individual. But that is what he was alluding to. Or when he said God is binary. Now, of course, binary has an understandable definition in our culture. It says I am neither male attracted or female attracted. Well, God is spirit, so God is neither male nor female. But to say that is to co-opt a term that has a certain meaning in our culture now, and therefore he very, very much confuses people and certainly raises hackles. Michael, real quick, from Spokane. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Dr. Ray, Spokane. Thanks for taking my call. It's about 65 to 70 today. I listened to your talk yesterday on life issues, and I agreed. Compassion is essential in dealing with life issues. Now, there are positives. More people are entering the Catholic Church over Easter weekend. In Europe now, England and France and Norway are rethinking transgender because they see some of the effects on this. And we do have 40 days for life here in the United States, which we stand in front of abortion buildings praying peacefully. A large number of abortions today, as you know, Dr. are done by mail order abortions, chemical, which kills the unborn and sometimes the mother. Prayer is essential, rosary is essential, but ultimately it's the lay Catholic who really have to step up to the plate.
I know what you're alluding to here, Michael, and you're talking about the monologue that I gave yesterday where, by and large, the Catholic morality and pretty much Christian morality for millennia, really, has being overthrown in our culture. The majority of people surveyed do not agree with it on some pretty big numbers, and depending upon your political party, those are wildly lopsided numbers. So yeah, I see what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. You know, the old love the sinner, hate the sin. Again, that's true, but putting that into practice is tough for people, and so that's something that we talk about a lot on this program. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Spoken from Spokane. I appreciate that. Okay, this is kind of going to be delicate here, and I know what Richard wants to say. All right, Richard from Florida, let's hear what you have to say on this, and it could become a delicate comment. Hi, Richard.
Hi. Long story short, I was born into a Jewish family, raised Jewish, attended synagogue for many years, and then later in life, I looked at what they were teaching. I said, "This is bad." I recognized it was diabolical in scope, and it was teaching me to hate everybody. So anyway,
wait, put some details on that. Hold on, Richard. Put some details on it. Hold on. Now, you're saying that the traditional Jewish faith, founded heavily upon the Old Testament, was teaching you bad stuff and was teaching you hate? How was that?
Well, if you teach someone that they are unique and they are God's chosen, and they said this over and over and over again, and you teach them that they can do anything to anybody that they want, that is teaching hatred.
Well, I'm sure that's not. I'm sure that's not the general Jewish faith. It may have been where you were, what you were hearing where you were, but that's not the general Jewish belief.
Teach you that you are special, really special.
Okay, you can believe you're special. Most religions do believe they're special.
Well,
but,
you know what I'm saying.
Well, if you say, I believe I'm special and everybody else is dirt, and I can look down on everybody else, that's
what they do.
Well, that may have been your particular exposure, but I'm pretty sure that is not what Orthodox Judaism teaches.
And I'm not talking about the Orthodox. I was never involved with any of the Orthodox Jews. I never dressed like that. I was never involved with them. I'm talking about what you guys call secular Jews, what you call Jews that dress like you and me, they hold a regular job, that type of thing.
Well, that would be how should I put this? That would be Israel nationalists. In other words, they are Jewish by their nationality as opposed to Jewish by their religion. Stay there, Richard. We're going to flesh this out a little bit more. This is Dr. Ray, 877-573-7825. 877-57-EQUAL is the number to call. Get onto the program. Dr. Ray. Dr. Ray Guarendi here, talking to Richard from Florida. Had an experience. He was formerly of the Jewish faith. He had experience where he was that he felt that what the folks there were being taught or were hearing was a lot of ill will towards others not like themselves. And he wanted to get out of that. He converted to Catholicism. Richard, I got a question about that. What was it about Catholicism that made you interested?
Yeah, well, let me paint a picture. So today, there was a news report that said that Israelis' armed forces burned the oldest Christian church in the world. And I'm looking at this, and then they burned the whole town. They kicked everybody out. They killed a bunch of people. and they're going to rebuild it as an Israeli village. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, what gives them the right to do this? And why should we tolerate this? And most importantly, why should we pay for it? And that has caused a tremendous amount of hate to gather inside me. And I love being a Catholic. It's a great church. It's a great religion. I could give you a list of things, probably 100 things long, that I like about it. But, this inaction on the part of the church is just really annoying to me.
Okay, let me respond.
So the question for you...
Wait, let me respond to what you just said. First of all, you're absolutely correct. If that's exactly what they did, then yes, they have no right to do that. However, it has been clear to me, following an awful lot of these world events the last couple of years, there's been a lot of misinformation and propaganda that ultimately turned out not to be true. So that's the first thing. I would be very slow to swallow something like that whole and say, unbelievable. Burned down the greatest church, the oldest church. They burned the whole village down. They're going to replace it with their own. That, first of all, it sounds like a stretch, but even if it happened, it was very, very wrong. That's right. That is not necessarily at all a reflection upon the Jewish religion. If it happened, which I severely doubt that it did, or there were probably kind of a mixture of what actually happened and the way it was portrayed. That's the first thing. We already know that there is an awful lot of propaganda going on against the Jewish people. That's a given, because later on it was proven to be a total false report. So that's the first thing I would say. But the second thing I would say is your Catholic faith that you love does not allow you to hate them. It's not permissible. You can say it's very wrong. You can say, I can't believe they did this. You can say, what kinds of things are they being taught that they think this is okay? You can say all that. But to hate them, wish them ill will or further damnation is not permissible in the faith that you love. That's at the very center of the faith that you love. No, go ahead. You had more to add.
Yeah, I was going to say that to your first point, that your response there was completely anticipated. It's always somebody else. It's always fake news. It's always this, that. It's always somebody else casting dispersion on them. I say no.
I didn't say that, Richard. I said you need to reserve judgment because you may not know all the facts or the truth or the reality. And that's been very clear over this whole mess. Very much so.
The starving children in Gaza was a bad look from day one when they started invading there. That was a very bad look. Now, what are you going to say? Oh, that never happened? That's all fake news?
I'm not going to say that.
To the degree they're perpetuating horrors in the world, which are incredible.
It amazes me, though, on one hand, I'm certainly not justifying any of that. But clearly, when the Jewish people were attacked, the sole goal was to create terror and kill innocents. That was the goal. Now, if Israelis' defense forces did these things to try to weed out the enemy, and as a terrible byproduct, there were these things that happened, one can say perhaps the intent was not to starve Hamas children. The intent was to root out the people who wanted Israelis dead. That's the difference. I'm not sticking up. I'm not getting into politics here. But one thing that is clear is that certain terrorist groups make no bones. We want to kill. We don't care who you are. We don't care if you're innocent or you're not. We want to kill you. Now, to the degree that somebody says, well, we got to fight back on this, They want to kill us. We got to fight back. And if you say, look what they did. Look what they did in fighting back. Look what they caused. One can say, was their intent to cause this? Which seems to be what you're saying. It was their intent to starve little Palestinian children. That was their intent. If they say, no, our intent was to get rid of the people who are trying to kill us and are killing our innocents, that's different. That's very different. Richard, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. 877-573-7825. 877-7825. Dr. Ray.
This program is brought to you by the following nonprofit underwriter.
Are you longing to hear God's voice? Lord, Teach Me to Pray, the free Ignatian Prayer Series will open your heart to His voice, to the peace you are seeking, and the only love that fulfills the human heart, Jesus. God is calling you to true joy, knowing Jesus personally. Lord, Teach Me to Pray is free. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com, click on the red box, order the Lord Teach Me to Pray series now. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com.
Ave Maria in the Afternoon is underwritten by the following nonprofit organization: Real Estate for Life. Buying or selling your home or business property? Real Estate for Life can connect you with one of 1,400 pro-life real estate agents around the world. When Real Estate for Life receives a referral fee, they donate 70% to Ave Maria Radio and Human Life International. More information at realestateforlife.org or 877-LIFE-US1. That's realestateforlife.org.
Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically own shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866 Ave Maria or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
Brought to you by the nonprofit Seton Home Study.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Ray Guarendi here. You want to pass the Catholic faith on to your children? A very good way is to teach your children at home. You want to protect your kids from the toxic culture that surrounds us? Do you want to have a greater influence than what your kids are learning? Once more, a great way is to teach your children at home. No teacher is going to care about your kids as much as you do. Seton Home Study School is the best way to teach your children at home. Go to setonhome.org. setonhome.org. Looking forward to heading down to Atlanta, our wonderful big boomer station down there, because we're going to, God willing, do 4 episodes of Living Right with Dr. Ray down in Atlanta. So we don't have the sign-up sheets set up yet. That's coming shortly, and I will be pursuing that. We have several cities in line to visit to produce Living Right with Dr. Ray, but at this point, just a heads up that we're going to start giving out some info on that. A couple other things here before I go to another call. In June, published Italy's Shrines and Wonders, Volume 2, discovering sacred spaces and fascinating places in the life of St. Francis of Assisi, by my Italian compadre, Teresa Tamio. It's written during this Jubilee year for the 800th anniversary of Francis's death. Talks about the Franciscan places, the hillside town of Assisi. I got to go there once. Wow. Really so very, very cool. San Damiano was rebuilt by St. Francis's own hands. Gubbio, where Francis tamed a ravaging wolf. Yeah, but he didn't have to deal with kids. That's different. So the book, Italy's Shrines and Wonders, Volume 2, Discovering Sacred Spaces and Fascinating Places in the Life of St. Francis of Assisi, and that can be gotten and purchased at ewtnrc.com. Now, Robert from L.A. feels obliged to say, I got a different perspective on this. Hi, Robert.
Hey, Dr. Ray. Listen, I just heard your last caller. I was also born and raised Jewish, and I'm now wonderfully Catholic. And I don't want your listeners to think that bitterness is the way it really is. I think, growing up, I'm 75, so I grew up post-World War II, And there was a lot of distrust. I think the prevailing sentiment was they put us in the gas chambers once. Given the right circumstances, they'll put us in the gas chamber again. So there was a lot of distrust and certainly a need, I think, collectively for the state of Israel, somewhere to go that you could call your own. But the Jews I deal with or know are just like anybody else, except they don't believe in Christ. But they have families they love. They want to just do what everybody else wants to do. They want to live in peace and raise a family and have a good life. And somehow some root of bitterness got into that young man, and I just felt like you need to have a balanced opinion on this. It's just not really that way from where I sit and where I live and what I've seen over the last 75 years.
Your experience parallels mine, Robert. I mean, to automatically, with a giant brush, just simply say all Jewish people, whether they are nativist Jews, whether they are religious Jews, whether they Hasidic Jews, whether they are completely secular in their perspective, all of them have this overarching mentality. The other problem, of course, is that they can't be held responsible for whatever kinds of confusion and problems that are occurring over there in the Middle East. I try to put myself in a position where if I was surrounded by people who clearly would prefer I would be dead, I wonder what that would do to my perception. I have to be straight about that. I just can't predict that I would be, I'm just a loving person and I will accept that they hate my guts. I'm not making any excuses for bad behavior. I'm simply saying there are factors there.
Well, it's just so dangerous. Anytime you throw in all, it becomes all blacks, all Muslims, fill in the blank. Once we go to all, we got big problems. We got
all priests. All priests are pedophiles.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like, wow, the bitterness this guy was spewing had nothing to do with his Jewishness or his former Jewishness. Given the different circumstances, it'd be all this he's angry at. Something else is going on. It's not a Jewish thing.
If I had more time, obviously, I would have explored further how it was that he came to these conclusions, that he came to believe these things. And I know when he said that he expected my response, which was a response just to simply say, caution. I've been following the news very closely all my life, and enough times, plenty of times, matter of fact, maybe as often as not, the original news story ended up being either totally fallacious or incomplete. Not unusual at all.
Absolutely. I will read articles now and have trouble believing them. And this is the good thing potentially about AI. I'll feed it into ChatGPT or Claude and say, is this true? And it comes back and it says exactly what you just said. Either no, or it's half true, or it takes a part of a truth and twists it into the story you just read. We have to be so careful, and it's only going to get worse in terms of the due diligence we have to do before we start forming these opinions.
Good point. Cautious. Somebody, Andrew, just put this.
And remember, as you rightly pointed out to him, remember, we are Catholic. It's all about divine mercy and unfathomable love. That's the end of the story, not, what did the Jews do in Gaza? What didn't they do? Et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. We are called by God to express divine mercy, period.
Thank you, Robert.
Anyway.
Appreciate
Thank you, Doctor.
The balanced approach. Thank you, sir. You too. This is not a political show. However, as you see what happens out there, and this is much more so than is ever in human history, what happens out there, the information we get fed, And you always have to say, okay, who's feeding us the information? Shapes how we think. Dramatically so. For almost all of human history, how you think was shaped by the people directly around you. That's it. Not now. Not now. And yes, for the last centuries, there have been input from places other than necessarily immediately in your world. However, not at this level, at this pace, at this amount, at this fingertips. Just not. And it can come at you like a water hose. And you can't swallow it. It's like it's trying to drink from a fire hose. You can't. And as a result, I wrestle with this all the time. How much of this is reality? How much of it is actually the way it is? And the only way to kind of get a sense of that is I got to keep analyzing it and taking different sources and seeing if there's some consistency. All right, I got to run. I thank you so much for joining me here on The Doctor Is In. One thing you can know for sure, your walk with God. That's the one thing that you never want to change.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.